Hello guys, today we have an awesome show with Edwin Carrion. He's a fellow military officer. He was in the Marines, I was in the Air Force, but what he really specializes in is helping people who want to be entrepreneurial, who want to create their own business, who want to be on their own feet and basically be responsible for their own success to really make that happen. And what's really cool about it is that he can keep your motivation up. And in our show today, he is going to tell us how you can get into it, how you can actually maintain the motivation, and how you can ultimately be successful in creating and running your own business. So stay tuned to this awesome show. Hello and welcome to another episode in the Ideal Investor Show. My name is Axel, and today we have an unbelievable guest and kind of like a kindred spirit, at least when it comes to the time that we're in with Memorial Day coming up and military service coming a little bit in the forefront of our minds. I want to welcome our guest today, Edwin Carrion. Edwin, how are you doing?
Hey, good afternoon. How are you? Thank you for having me here, and I'm doing excellent today. And to everyone listening out there, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Get ready to listen to an amazing show.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Edwin. I have a little challenge for you. And the challenge is I looked through all the amazing stuff that you did, all these companies and the service that you did and the amazing life that you live and have already lived. So the challenge is give us a summary in a nice, concise way so we have a little bit of an idea. Who is Edwin? What has he done? What is he most proud of?
Edwin is a God made millionaire, and I think I'm most proud of having a good relationship with God. I think that is my number one thing in life that I discover
Okay.
is to have a great relationship with God. But besides that, being very blessed my whole life, was raised by an amazing woman, my mother, grew up in Ecuador until I was 12 years old, came to the United States, and I was able to come to this country, which is the land of the dreams, right? We make our dreams come true if you follow those dreams, right? Never left my dreams behind.
Right.
And I was able to fulfill those dreams, meaning having the cars that I wanted, having the house that I dreamed of, having the beautiful, most amazing wife that I wanted in my life. And last but not least, my beautiful children. I always wanted two beautiful girls, and I have those. So I cannot say my life is perfect, but I will tell you that if something happens to me today, I'm going to say thank you, God, for this amazing life that I had.
And thank you for that relatively quick summary. So I'm assuming when I'm listening to you, that sounds like it all fell into your lap and was no work involved, right?
No, that's the good side of the story. But, people tend to like to listen to the good side of the story, but within all those great, amazing things in my life, there's having so many struggles, so many heartaches. I'm still trying to get to understand when people say blood, sweat, and tears,
Mhm.
because I don't know why everybody bleeds. But I could definitely tell you that it has been a lot of tears, a lot of hard work, a lot of effort, a lot of times that I felt that I wasn't going to make it, but I'm finally here. And I don't focus on that. I focus on the good. I tend not to focus on the hardships and the struggles, but there has been a lot of struggles along the way.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like an interesting thing to point out. Blood, sweat, and tears, I think, is applicable to like the pilgrims, when you had to fight your way from east to west and discover new land and stake new farms and stuff like that. It probably never really got updated to like our more knowledge-based work. It should probably be something like headaches and red eyes and I don't know, heart palpitations or something like that.
Right.
But the thing that I thought quite fascinating when I prepared for our show today is that immediately after your military service, there is like a whole sequence, not all that they happened in a very short period of time, but a sequence of endeavors that you got involved in. And I think, at least the way it's described on your website, each and every time you got involved in something, I'm assuming that you liked or were passionate about or felt you could make an impact. But mainly what stuck with me, and I would like to ask you to talk a little bit about that for a moment, is to take it from its current state Like I read, one entity was at 2 million, you took it to 12 million. Another one was at like startup and you took it to 5 million and then sell it successfully. What's the secret that Edwin applies to get something from its current state to a much higher, better, more valuable state?
Right. There's no secret on the success. So it's pretty much is what is it that we do? What is it that I do every time?
Yeah.
And it's being consistent on everything.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that I learned, that when you have consistency and you find that proven model works in every type of business.
Mhm.
So as you mentioned, I switched from industry to industry. So I have been in the real estate industry, I have been in the jewelry industry and the transportation industry and the investment industry. I have jumped through multiple industry, in the construction industry as well. And in every one of those businesses, I was successful. Why? Because I found the path to success, meaning that I kept doing the same thing over and over again into each and every one of those businesses and those industries that I got into. And I realized when I started mentoring people that there was basic things that they did not follow, and that's why they weren't successful. That's why they weren't able to scale their business from a few $100,000 to millions of dollars. And once you learn, the success, once you learn that operating system and you duplicate it, it's very simple to grow a business.
Yeah, and is it okay to share maybe a story that illustrates that a little bit? I mean, not naming names or anything, but just so the audience can get a little bit of a flavor on how does that look like, or what are the things that really make the difference?
Yes. Well, number one, it starts with the most basic one. It's the mindset.
Okay.
That's number one. A lot of people don't have that millionaire mindset.
Hmm.
And it's having the millionaire mindset in order for you to be able to grow your business. So people start a business and say, no, I'm going to make millions of dollars in this business. But then when they're asked to invest, $20,000 in advertising, they don't want to do it. Why? Because no, it's $20,000 is too much money. So how are you going to take a business to millions of dollars if you can't even spend $20,000 in advertising? So that's the mindset, that your mindset is not ready for those $20,000.
Mm.
So the moment that you start looking at investing $20,000 and it doesn't hurt you and $20,000 doesn't mean anything, then that means that your mindset has surpassed that level of thousands of dollars, right? Once you start spending hundreds of thousands of dollars and it doesn't mean anything to you, your mindset is at the $100,000 level. Once you get to the mindset of the millions of dollars, and when you think about, somebody comes to you and tells you, hey, in order to grow your business, you need to buy this equipment that's going to be $300,000. Then you just say, okay, it's 300,000, perfect. Give me two of those, because you know that investment is going to yield you 4 times or 5 times as much. So once you have that millionaire mindset, once you have that mindset that in order to grow, your mind has to grow, then there is to scale a company is extremely easy. So that's number one. Number two, it starts with the basics again. And the basics that everybody learns in business school is to create a business plan, right?
Yeah.
And 90% of the young entrepreneurs that I meet today, they never created a business plan, meaning that they know what they want to do. They have it on their head. Oh, I want to grow this company. I want to start a car washing business and I'm going to do this. But they don't have a business plan. So how are you going to know where you want to get to? How are you going to know your goals if you don't have the basic, which is creating a business plan? Meaning is, everybody knows the saying, right? Out of sight, out of mind. So if I don't have in sight what my goals, what my visions are, I'm never going to achieve them. And to put this in perspective, when I was a little kid, I always said, I'm going to have a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
And my vision, my business plan for the Lamborghini was to have a little replica Lamborghini and to have all my little Lamborghini toys. So it was on my mind all the time. It was in my sight all the time. So as I grew up there, subconsciously, that became ingrained in my head that at one point in my life, I'm going to achieve that dream, because I never said I want to have a Lamborghini. I always said I'm going to have a Lamborghini. And it came to one point in my life that I had not one, but two or a few Lamborghinis that I had now. And I achieved that dream because it was ingrained. It was in my sight at all times. So again, we have so many thoughts in our daily life that those thoughts come and go. But if we have something that we really want and we put it in front of us, those thoughts are going to become ingrained in our head, and we're going to make sure we'll figure out a way to achieve that thought, to become that a reality. And that's the same way with business. People start their business because they want a successful life, but they don't achieve that success in life because they don't know what they want. And it starts with the business plan.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are really core things. And it's kind of, in a sense, funny because anybody who has ever gone to the Ideal Investor show or to our Ideal Wealth Grower website would see one of the first things. And I actually find it totally aligned with you, Edwin. So important that we give the mindset manual that I wrote and the video series that goes with it to people, whether they become clients or not, for free, because it's so important. The one thing that kind of resonated when you were talking about mindset to me is this, and it feels very much pushed onto us as a society from the outside, from the media and so forth, is this aspect of limiting beliefs, which in a sense, as part of the mindset, also feeds this expectation that life somehow is different, like you were saying, when I make it to like, I still remember, I'm sure you remember, when the whole thing about business development was how can you fastest get to a six-figure income. And I know a whole
Yes.
bunch of my friends, they really, really put in a lot of effort to get to a six-figure thing. And I said, okay, Frank, tell me, how is life different now that you have the six figures? And most of them, they were almost like a little deflated to say, you know what, I can't really put my finger in that it's much different than it was 5.9 figures. Being, like when you make from 95,000 to 110,000, is that really different? And I think that's kind of what you're hitting on a little bit as well. It's not going to be that different when you do like a $500,000 or $1 million deal, but we have been indoctrinated. I think that's always sometimes the frustrating part. And since we both do mentoring, I think part of our role is to help people to shed this indoctrination like a snake sheds their skin, and renew themselves to say, okay, well, I don't have to believe what I'm being told from the outside. I have to have my own experiences to prove what works for me, what I want, what my goals are, and so forth. So I really appreciate that you pointed strongly towards the mindset and the willingness to set goals. And I think since we're both mentors, it's fair to say when you realize that there is a need for a business plan, but you've never done it before, then you shouldn't be afraid to reach out and say, can somebody help me? Shouldn't
Exactly.
be a
No, no.
money thing.
Yes. No, not at all. Not at all. And you and I are a little bit older, but this new generation, even people our age right now, it's so much easier nowadays because 20 years ago when I started in business, there wasn't all these resources that we have nowadays. We didn't have access to social media where we could reach out to a mentor and say, "Hey, how can I do this?" or just Google something. Back then it was a lot harder. We had to, stick within our own territory, and now we could go universal and just figure something out easily.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that brings up one thing that we talked a little bit, and that is my impression is the younger generation right now has basically been released into individualism, starting with their smartphone, where I see people that are part of the same crowd going to a place and they're like 3 or 4 feet from each other and texting each other, right? It's not so much the access to the information, to the data, to the knowledge, because we all have like 5G and internet and blah blah blah, but the
Yeah.
social skills that come with that. So one of the things you had said, hey, that would be cool to talk about, is what are your top life hacks? So from a little bit like, how do we socially interact, but also how can we improve our lives? What does Edwin say are the top life hacks that you would recommend?
So the top life hacks for me are, it starts with the morning. In the morning when I wake up, I try to do and smile for 1 minute. So I look at myself in the mirror and I smile for 1 minute. And what that does to me, starts my day off on the right foot, because our mind has so many negative thoughts on a daily basis that I just need to start the day off on the right foot. And if my mind is negative, then my day is going to continue negative. So number one is smiling for at least 1 minute. My other life hack is number two, telling myself how great I am, praising myself, doing my affirmations, and kind of being grateful for the life that I have, because I don't care what people think about me. I just need to care what I believe in myself, what I think of myself.
Mhm.
So if I know that I am the best looking guy, if I know that I am the most amazing guy, if I know that I look at myself as like I'm the most successful guy, that's all that matters. Because if I believe in myself, if I have that faith in me, then there's nothing that I cannot do. But if I start listening to everybody else, if I start listening to people tell me, you're not that good looking, you're not that smart, you're not that funny. If I start believing that, then they will take me down and I will never accomplish what I'm here to accomplish. So to me, it's very important that I do that. So that's the second thing that I do. And then I'm trying to work on my physical appearance, meaning working out, eating healthy. That is part of my routine. Try to make it to the gym, try to work out as much as I can. And, there's times as life comes, it's hard and, it doesn't happen. So at least get out, walk with the kids, do something active on a daily basis. My other half is always going out there and feeling myself with God's energy, with the sun, feeling that warm, with the warmth in me because in my house is always cold. So I like to go outside and
Yeah,
just
me
kind of
too.
stand
Yeah.
in front of the sun and just get those sun baths. To me, that's amazing.
Yeah, I actually went as putting up a pad on my patio, a little bit of an area where I can sit and work with my tablet or something and do the same thing.
Yes, exactly. So those are like my main life hacks. Again, being grateful for who I am, smiling, creating a checklist of important things and focusing on the important things, not on the things that are, I call it time wasters,
Mhm.
kind of just focusing on the things that are important in life.
Yeah, one
And
quick thing on that notion with those kind of routines. What's your thought about gratitude journal?
about gratitude,
Journaling. There's something called a gratitude journal where, like, the way I actually recommend for people that want to build routines and habits to have, and you can get it on Amazon or in Staples or stuff like that. But the thing is for each day to spend a few minutes in the morning to write down three, four things that you're grateful for, and then go through
yes,
your
yes,
day. And
I
then
know.
basically at the end of the day, to reflect what happened today. It's called a journal, or you could also call it kind of like a diary in
Yeah.
a sense, to have a little bit of a reflection of what happened. Mainly it should be, like you suggested, the good things that happen, and then also again, what am I grateful for the things that happen during the day. So each day is basically a page. I was just curious if you do anything or suggest something like that.
And I will definitely suggest it. I personally don't do it
Mhm.
because again, I use that gratitude every morning that I wake up. One of my affirmations is again, what I'm grateful for. So I don't write it down because I'm aware of what I'm grateful for. But if you're on the beginning stages where you need to get to that point, definitely journaling is number one to make you realize that there's so much in life that you have to be grateful for. And people don't realize that. I'm aware of that. So maybe I don't do the journaling because of that. But if you're not aware of that, definitely that's a place to start becoming aware of that.
Yeah, and I find actually in my mentoring relationships that by suggesting this, people actually oftentimes in the first few weeks come back and say, I realized that I never really forced myself to think about what was good, because everything
Yes.
that we are in, it's kind of like we're frogs in a soup that is constantly filled with negative energy, right? Every news, every
That was what I was saying.
everything that you see, anywhere you turn any kind of piece of information on, is as loud as possible negativity. So basically challenging oneself to say, well, there must be something good that happened today, is actually literally a challenge in the beginning, and it becomes easier as you do it. So talking about challenges, I think anybody who is paying a little bit attention to their money or to their investments or their path forward, whether they're still on the journey towards financial independence or they're there and want to preserve it, that so far this year for most market hasn't been very good, right? And
Yeah.
so one of the questions would be, in these kind of challenging situations, market crashes, downturns, bear markets, all this kind of stuff that we're hearing, what are you basically suggesting people can do and how to handle their finances in these kind of challenging situations?
Okay. So I was very fortunate enough to go bankrupt in 2007 when the market crashed, when the real estate market crashed, right? And the reason I say fortunate enough, because it taught me a huge lesson. And it taught me that you can make a lot of money on a recession, on a bad economy, just like you can make a lot of money on a good economy, right? So the most important thing is here, how do we make money during a market crash? How do we make money during a recession? And we need to understand what a lot of people don't understand is that, and we need to learn from women. Women are amazing at this, right? And what I say by women are amazing at this is that my wife is always shopping, but every time I ask her, like, why do you keep spending money? She comes to me, is like, because it was a sale. It was 30% off. It was 20% off. It was 40% off, right? So once we start understanding that and analyzing that, then that's the same thing that happens when a market crash or when a recession. Everything is in sale. So now you're able to go out there and buy, these companies at 30, 40% of the market value of the actual cost of what the actual cost is. And that's if you're an investor that you're investing into stocks and things like that. On the real estate market, the same thing happens. In the 2007 recession, If you had that knowledge that I'm sharing with you right now, you would have been able to buy properties at 80 to 90% of the market price and then hold down for them for 5, 6 years and then started making a killing, which I have quite a few friends right now that they're just cashing out right now and they're doing maybe 300, 400% on their money because they bought when the market crashed. They bought it at 80 to 90% of the market. But the same thing happens with businesses. When we go into a recession, when the market crashes, there's a lot of businesses, and I'm talking about very good businesses that just need a little bit of change to those businesses in order to succeed. And that's when you take advantage and you're able to scale your business. So if you're in the transportation company, for example, and you only have 10 trucks, when we enter into the recession, there's going to be a few transportation companies that are going to be going under because they don't know how to manage properly, because they didn't save reserves for this type of situation. Now that's the time when you're able to go and buy those companies and acquire their customers and acquire their assets and now double the size of your company and continue growing your company. So that's normally what we do during a recession or during a market crash.
Yeah, I think that's very, very good advice, especially since we are probably either already in it or going to be in a recession pretty soon. One thing that I like to add, and I'm hoping that you would agree, Edwin, is for, like you said, women are amazing and they see those kind of things. I would bet that your wife also realizes what's the actual value to be able to say, is this a true sale? Is this really a markdown in value? Or is just somebody trying to pull my leg by putting a sign on that says normally $100 now available for $75, right? So you have to have the awareness what the true value is. That's one thing. And the other part that I think goes along with that, that I'm trying to infuse in this mindset of a business owner, is to say, okay, what are the big picture things that influence my business? Right? When you see, for example, and I think nobody needed to be a rocket scientist, that the government has basically for the last 3 years been printing money like crazy. Right?
Yes.
So to say I don't need to know all the details or understand every detail, but I can see that this is not forever sustainable. So when the reaction to this craziness happens, I want to be prepared. Just like you said, the guy who has this transportation business should have built up reserves to be able to buy this business that goes out of business, right? Or when you see that the inventory is far outstripping the demand, obviously there will be a sale and your wife and my wife will go and get some, right? So I just want
Exactly.
to point out to our audience that it's the combination of what Edwin said, is how do you actually have the awareness of what is value and what is a good sale and good opportunity. But in the context, I would say, in the context of how are things shifting? And most of these things that are shifting are not shifting day to day. They're really big picture shifts. And when we declared, okay, we're pretty much done with COVID, well, that started a new era. When that war in Ukraine started, that started a new era of big picture changes. And I want to encourage everybody listening to say, take the things that Edwin mentioned together with keeping and trying to keep a little bit of a overview of what's the environment I'm living in, and what do these changes actually my personal things, whether it's in real estate or transportation company or our women go out shopping for deals and stuff like that. So with that being said, I think the third part that we said we wanted to touch on a little bit, now we know, kind of like what routines to have to be in the right mindset. And I would actually say, thank you for sharing this, Edwin. It builds a level of confidence that you don't really have to say. I think people feel it more than they listen to it, or it's more an experience. I've been in so many conversations, I'm sure you have too, where people say, I trust you, and I can't even put my finger on exactly why, but just the way you come across, the way you carry yourself, all those kind of things. And that is, in my view, their attempt to describe confidence.
Yes.
Right. So we talked about, how do you handle your money in market crashes? You shared your life hacks. So with all of that, and some of the things might even get a little worse before they get better again in the markets, what's the importance of looking forward, have forward thinking, and having goals?
It's very important in life to always be forward thinking. And there's two things for that, because people tend to say, you know what? Oh, I can't be focused in the future. I want to be present. Yeah, being present, you have to always be present. We have to enjoy our life. We only have one life. So there's nothing else that's going to come in that, right? But we also have to be aware of thinking where we're going to be 10 years from now, where we're going to be 15 years from now. And one of the good questions that I heard last year that it really hit me really hard in my mastermind group, they asked me, what do you look forward to on the next 10 years? And what is it that you're afraid on the next 10 years? So when I started thinking about that, I'm like, 10 years, I'm like, wow, my daughter is going to be 18 years old, meaning that she's probably going to leave the house at 18 years old. And to me, like, that's one of the things that I'm afraid of. Like, I don't want my daughter to leave 10 years from now because she's going to be 18, right?
Right.
So that's thinking ahead, right? I'm thinking ahead of what's going to happen there. So by thinking ahead, it made me realize that now that I only have these 10 years left with my daughter before she moves out, if she moves out at 18, assuming she moves out at 18, I need to make sure that I create the most amazing experiences, that I make sure that I spend the most time with her. So, like, she has those memories that will last a lifetime. And she's ingrained with those values that I want her to take on in life in the future. I want to be the best man that I could be for her. So, like that, 10 years from now, when she's finding a boyfriend, she makes sure that she looks for the best man in her life because I was that role model for her. So, forward thinking is extremely important, not just in business, but in life in general.
But
Again, looking forward to that, I'm sorry, is building that relationship with my wife. Make sure that we build a solid relationship because once they are gone, it's going to be only her and me left. And I'm sorry, let me correct myself. Good English, right? Proper English. It's going to be her and I left in the house. So if we don't have a good relationship now, we'll probably end up getting divorced. And that's what happens to a lot of marriages in the future when the kids leave their house because we're not forward thinking of what do we need to do once we get to that stage in life.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that is very profound and obviously impactful when we help our own kids and hopefully other young people as well. For me, this is in a way a very beautiful description of mentorship, right? It's not just a thing that you can do in business, it's basically a thing that you can do in life. And I also believe it is a whole person and a whole body experience, right? Just teaching somebody a certain skill or a set of values that only applies in a very narrow environment, I have found to be not really useful. Right? When you said, as you said nicely, you want to infuse those values so that she can make the right choices, right? Not just in your eyes, but also right in her eyes, in society's eyes for a solid future. That is an activity that happens basically through mentorship, right? Some people
Yes.
would say, well, isn't that parenting? And there are parts of parenting, I would say, that are very close to, if not exactly the same like mentorship. But the more important thing is we're not just shaping what somebody knows and how to apply a routine or what a procedure should be or follow an SOP, going back to our old times, right? But but it's how do you put it in context? What is right or wrong? What principles do you live by? How do you carry yourself? How do you maintain your confidence in light of all the negativity? All those kind of things. Basically, I look at it in a way like you're putting together a puzzle that has almost an endless number of pieces. And the more you're
Yes.
working on it, the better and the more obvious it becomes. And it becomes your picture. And it's
Yes.
I think that is really nice and important that we spend some of the time, which goes back to what we said earlier. You can do a journal, you can do a diary, you can do other routines, but something that encourages you to regularly think about that. If for no other reason to say, am I still on a track that satisfies me? Right. And if you find
Yes.
you're not, then you should probably change something.
Yep.
So, with that being said, we always ask at the end of the show the two same questions to all our guests. So, I want to ask you as well, Edwin. The first one is if you could meet anybody, past or present, who would you want to meet and
If I could meet anybody, who would I want to? I think the one person that I do want to meet and sit down and have coffee with, it's Tony Robbins.
okay.
He's such an influence in my life and somebody that I really look up to. And that'll be the one person.
Okay, cool. Would you ask him to show him his feet?
No,
If he
I
has
don't think so.
any scars from all the firewalks?
I actually did the fireworking myself too. It wasn't bad at all.
Okay, well, just gotta be fast, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and then the other question we always ask is, if you had a time machine, could go anywhere, forward, backwards, where would you go and why?
If I had it forward and backward, where would I go? Probably forward.
Okay.
I will go forward in time, and I'll go forward to the 10-year mark, right?
I was
To
thinking you would go a
see
little further
if
and want to see the boyfriend.
to see if I did a good job. No, because if I did a good job at the 10-year mark,
Yeah.
then I'll know she picked the right guy. So I'll be okay with that.
Yeah, well, modern women actually, typically, from what I can see, my daughter included, take a little longer than 18 to pick a guy. But okay,
I'll pray for that.
yeah. Okay, well, yeah, it seems like they evolving so much faster than I remember. When I was young, 17, 18, we
Definitely.
were basically idiots. But my daughter was like a
Yes.
smart woman at 18 for sure. So
It's all this technology. I'm telling you, they have so much access to everything that is change.
yeah, but I
The
think
world has sped up.
it's also, if you ask me, there is a little bit, we're underestimating the ability of the human mind, I believe. Like it's a
Yes.
matter of how much have we challenged our brains. I've often said, from the consciousness part, if you say, okay, fundamentally we have 30% consciousness, 70% subconsciousness, but how much of that consciousness that is fundamentally available are we really challenging? If I look at my lifetime, I would say just a few percent. And if like your daughter or my daughter get challenged a little more, that conscious mind is easily capable to do more, and could, even if I think, her kids, they could challenge and add more and evolve even faster and still not getting anywhere close to that 30% capacity. So, I think part of that evolution and ability to be so much further ahead than I at least was, it's just we didn't have enough triggers and enough things to actually deal with, and things to explore. Now they have access to kind of like the library of the world, and it's just a matter of how open are
Yes.
you to it, right? And the brain is by
Yes.
no way, in my view, tapped out to handle that. There's so much more capacity there.
Yes, there is.
All right,
Definitely.
cool. So now if somebody says, hey, this guy, brings companies from hundreds of thousands to millions, and is really cool and has this awesome way of handling market crashes and life hacks and stuff, how can people get in touch with you, Edwin?
I will say, follow me in my social media channels, and also go to my website. My website is edwincarrion.com, and my social media channels is Edwin Carrion 78, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. That's the best place to find me. Send me a message, ask me a question. I'm more than happy to respond.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Edwin. It was really wonderful talking to you, and learning a little bit about, what do we do if the market gets even worse, and how do we live a better life. So profound thank you for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it. And it was great. And to everyone out there, don't forget that you will always get to where you want to get eventually if you do not know the right path.
Right, absolutely. Thank you so much, Edwin, and maybe do it again sometime in the future.
For sure. Yes, sir.
Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Ideal Investor Show. More info and the links we mentioned during the show are in the show notes, or you can go to our website at idealwealthgrower.com and sign up for the Apple Podcast link. And if you like to talk to me, sign up for a strategy call. Hopefully you want to share what you learned with your network and bring more people in. We are really eager to hear your comments. And until next time, be well, stay safe, and ciao.